On the top left, you'll see the Ream Mansion, which is just up the street where Marianapolis School is. Ream was on the board of directors of the world's largest company at the time, U.S. Steel. It was formed by J.P. Morgan, and J.P. Morgan did the same thing for biscuits that he did for steel. He pulled them together and formed Nabisco. And guess who his friend Ream joined soon after? Nabisco and several other rail companies. Carolyn Home was started in 1899. The wife, Carolyn, purchased properties all around quietly, sort of the Walt Disney thing in Orlando, quietly buying the property until they had acquired a large number. And the home was soon built. 2 years later, the home was started. In that house, the oldest daughter was Marion Ream. Marion Ream later became Mrs. von Siaski. And that connects to our story. Just to give you an idea of the work that was done by Italians, I'm going to keep the Italians right in front of your face as much as possible. The Italians did most of the stone walls. So if you look around, if anybody says that there are pyramids in Thompson, the answer is true. They were built by Italians, not by ancient Mayans or Egyptians. So Ream spared no expense. You can see the landscaping. You can see the Chinese tea house, which is still in existence on the Marianapolis property. Love these vehicles. This is a 1909. That building is still standing with the turntable inside. And you had to have mechanics who were also drivers at the time because of the reliability issues with the vehicles. I'm sure some of us would like to have those vehicles today. It was certainly a multi-million-dollar collection if we could have them. Of course, the man cave, there it is. There was a bowling alley in the building. I'm not showing you all the beautiful bedrooms. I just was attracted to the man cave. What man cave would not be complete with a golf course across the street? So across from where we are now, Ream built the golf course, which was very visible from the Russian Bear Tea House. And this is really the only known photo proving that that large item that people have called the armory for reasons we'll explain later. That armory was actually a windmill with a water tank on top, and you can see the spinning windmill up there. It's visible from the street. So this is Norman Bruce Ream with his wife, Carolyn Putnam. Now, his oldest daughter was Marion, was born in 1875. She's shown in a wedding dress in 1921. She was college educated, which is something unheard of here in the United States at the time. She studied 2 languages, which was very important because she ended up volunteering to be a nurse in World War I. Now, at this time, she was divorced just prior to this period. Her father had died, left a tremendous amount of money to the children. She divorces her husband, and the first thing she does is go right to the front. She goes to France with an ambulance that she filled, and she served with the expeditionary forces that were there. And this is what she was doing, this type of service as an American Red Cross nurse. So into this chaos, she meets a refugee, white Russian soldier. This soldier was a cadet at the time, had fought his way across Europe, being chased by the communists with other cadets. His name was Anastasy von Siaski. He had been born in Poland to a Russian military family that was ennobled. The von indicates ennoblement. He wasn't ennobled when he showed up in Paris. He was recovering from frostbite. He had multiple gunshot wounds he was recovering from. He had been incapacitated in a hospital in Constantinople, Istanbul, and the British shipped him out saying, where do you want to go, London or Paris? He could speak a little bit of French, so he ended up in Paris. So here he is, Paris, alone, no money, 22 years old. Let's just talk about the life this young man led up to this point. His father had been assassinated in 1910. His mother died in 1916. He was the youngest of her 5 children. He somehow ended up going to military school just before she died. Brother Nikolai died in fighting against the communists. His sister Maria completely disappeared, no record. His sister Natasha escaped to China, Harbin near China. And for 2 years, as I said, he fought with Imperial cadets. In one incident, they killed more than 500 Red soldiers. These are 14, 15, 16-year-old cadets. So you can imagine the life this young man led. So he was a lot older than 22 when he shows up in Paris, as you can probably imagine. He's working in a theater, making peanuts, and he meets Marion Stevens. That was her divorce name at the time. He meets her many years older. She hears his story and says, you need to come to America. There's opportunity there. So she brings him to work in the Baldwin locomotive plant in Philadelphia. Says, why don't you come up on a vacation? Why don't you come up and meet Mom up here in Thompson? They come. She's got all the money. What do you need to work for? Come here, we'll teach you English. One thing leads to another, it evolves, and they get married. Unfortunately, it becomes front page news, right? The shop worker wins the era. Chicago Daily Tribune. You should have seen the New York papers. You can just imagine. I am not going to go deeper into this story other than to say the shenanigans here are immense. It would go hundreds of pages to explain to you what happened. You'll have to read the book or watch the miniseries, because this is about Andy Mamedoff here. Ultimately, I'm just getting you to how he got there. During this period of time, von Siaski now is retired from his 1 year of working at the Baldwin locomotive factory. He no longer has to work. And both Marion and Count von Siaski have bought a plane, and they're landing it on the golf course. So it's right across the street from the house. They have the plane. And this is just talking about him flying to Chicago. They take the house that's one house up from the Russian Bear, and they've added this little fortress thing that on the inside looked like some type of an Imperial War Museum from the Tsar's castle somehow. So that construction goes on, and this is where the von Siaskis live. Natasha, his sister, and her husband, Colonel Mamedoff, were invited. Somehow connection was made, and they figured out where she was in China and said, come here. And so they moved them to a farm that was purchased just down the street at the Russian Bear. This is what it looked like. And they had the boy, Andy. Now, Mark Snee, our chief archivist, has to sort out the dilemma, because somewhere between 1910 and 1912, Andy was born, and no sources seem to agree. So that's another mission for you, Mark, to figure out.
Thanks.
Okay?
You're welcome.
The Mamedoffs entertained very well. And for those of you who took the barn tour, I explained that it was part speakeasy. You could order lemonade, or you could blink your eyes twice and order lemonade, right? And you would get the better lemonade with the double blink, okay? So there was a theater, and the Count, now remember this person, the Count spoke Russian, Polish, German, some French, quickly learned English, and the next thing you know, within a few years, he's on the stage down there at that little theater and performing shows that he's written, his own plays, and singing and dancing. They used to say when he was in Paris at the Canteen, like, da, 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 he would do, fans would laugh at him on stage. But he wasn't, now he had his own stage, so nobody had to laugh at him when he was doing that. This is a typical afternoon at the Russian Bear Tea House. One of the ladies in this photo is very likely Heidi Roosevelt. Roosevelt's lived in town and they were family friends. Now the Count grew up and he started to see what was going on. Stalin now was taking control. The communists were now taking a very different turn than before. And Vansiaski grew to really, really be angry with the way the Russian Communist Party is going. Remember, he was fighting on the Tsar for the Tsar as a cadet. It got to the point where he started to print his own political newspaper and sent it around the world. So this is his paper. Obviously, he's on the cover. And at that point, he made it clear to Stalin, writing the letter himself to Stalin, any enemy of you is my friend, right? So he wrote this without, remember, Stalin was going around the world assassinating people. Trotsky, for example, one of the founders of the Communist Party, was assassinated, I believe in Mexico City, by Stalin. So this guy's writing letters to Stalin, thumbing the nose at him, saying, I'm not afraid of you. And here's his most powerful Mussolini Hitler pose, saying, when we take you down, Stalin, I am going to take your job, and here I am looking like I'm ready. Now that looks like a Nazi, a German Nazi swastika. It is not a Nazi swastika. That is a Russian fascist swastika, a very different one. Unfortunately, that's where a problem began for him. And so I'm not going to spend much more time about Count Vansiaski, but that is the uncle of Andy Mamedoff. This guy was not very afraid of too many things after having been shot and wounded and doing what he did. Well, guess who trained Andy to fly? So Andy and Vansiaski had a very close personal friend who became his, let's say, aide-de-camp. They traveled around the world, China, Japan.